All right, welcome back to Ring Chronicles. This is episode 4, and unfortunately, we've got change in plans for this episode. We were going to bring you the second part of the history of women's wrestling, but we lost a couple of one legend and one probably was going to be a legend had we not lost them too soon.
Yeah.
Terry Funk and Bray Wyatt. So I think you got a lot for us this week.
I do. A lot of this came up last minute because, I didn't have a lot of time to prepare, but we felt like it was important to push this out.
Mm-hmm.
And I regret that we are not able to cover women's wrestling this week. The first episode was really good. How did we do on the numbers on that one?
They shot up really quick and then stalled out.
Oh, God.
Stalled out just as quick as they shot up. So.
Alabama, we need you.
It don't matter. We're going to keep going. We lost Terry Funk at 79 and then Bray Wyatt at 36, still in his prime.
Gosh, yeah. I want to say something just to kind of start this off, in case you're wondering. I was a fan of both of these guys, a legitimate fan, and you're not going to hear anything bad about either one of these guys, in case you're wondering, because, of course, when people review people's lives and things after their death, people may think of some stuff. And some people may avoid talking about bad things in a wrestler's career, but that's not going to happen even if we were just talking about these guys without having this happen, because I just don't have anything bad to say about either one of these guys, to be honest with you. Terry Funk's a legend. Nobody can doubt that. He's one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. And in my opinion, Bray Wyatt was one of the greatest untapped potentials in wrestling today. I think that he was terribly underrated. I think that he was terribly booked. I'm going to go into that. I think that he was a creative genius and was on the level with ring psychology of Jake the Snake Roberts. And his gimmick, in my opinion, of The Fiend, which we'll go into that, which was unfortunately short-lived, his gimmick of The Fiend was, in my opinion, the best gimmick we've had since The Undertaker. So what else can I say about somebody? So we're going to talk about Terry Funk first. Terry Funk, there's not a whole lot of controversy about Terry Funk. A lot of people pretty much, the wrestling community pretty much agrees on Terry Funk.
Mm-hmm.
There ain't hardly anybody that says, Terry Funk wasn't all that great.
Right.
I just don't even, I don't even know anybody that would say that. I think even Jim Cornette, who doesn't like the furniture and all that, would agree that Terry Funk was one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. I'd have to look up to see what he says about the guy, but I kind of know Jim Cornette's brain, and I think that he would even say that Terry Funk was one of the greatest. If you hear something popping in the background, we're having some Tropicalias.
That's right. Tropicalia from Creature Comforts in Athens, Georgia. It's just right up the road. Sponsor us, goddammit.
Yes. We're going to need this to get through this episode.
Yep.
We're having two. I'm having two. One for Terry and one for Bray Wyatt. So, gosh. All right. So Terry Funk, born June the 30th in 1944, died August 23rd, 2023. A lot of this information is from Wikipedia. You can find it. This pretty much is well known. Over a 50-year career. So I believe that he wrestled in 5 different decades, if I'm not mistaken. So he's not up there with Mae Young with 9, but he's up there.
So he did wrestle in the 2010s then, because he started in the 70s.
Oh,
right?
yeah. He started in the 60s.
60s,
actually.
okay.
He started in the
right.
60s, so that's 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000, 2010s. Actually, that'd be six different decades.
Okay.
I'm wrong.
Yep.
6 decades. Because his last match was in 2017.
Man.
So he started in 1965, and his last match was in 2017.
Man, so how old was he in 65? Because he was born in 50?
He was born in 44.
44, okay. Yeah, okay, that's right, yep.
Yeah, so, and he went to college and did amateur wrestling and all that before he became a professional wrestler. As anybody would probably know that knows anything about professional wrestling, he was the son of Dory Funk, who was a professional wrestler, and his brother, Dory Funk Jr. Were you there when Dory Funk Jr. went to Valdosta?
Yes, I was there. Yes,
we almost saw him die.
Yeah. It was hard to watch, right? Because you're seeing this old man right in front of your eyes taking bumps.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
It was rough.
In his 70s.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
That was pretty wild.
Mm-hmm.
So, what kind of genetics do these two guys have? I mean, that Dory Funk Jr. was wrestling probably till the day he died,
right? And
Terry Funk wrestled all the way up to 2017.
Yeah.
So, what kind of genetics do these guys have? I mean, they were just tough as hell.
Yeah.
You know, I was sad to hear about Terry Funk, but I wasn't as sad as I was about Bray Wyatt. And it's not anything to do with Terry Funk. It's just that, honestly, Terry Funk lived longer than he had any right to live.
I honestly thought he was older. Honestly, if you would have asked me before all this, I would have probably said 90.
Yeah.
I probably would have thought he was 90.
I mean, he was old whenever he was getting, thrown in the barbed wire and crap like that.
Because when I first, I've said it before, I didn't start watching wrestling until 98. So when I first saw him, he was already an old man as far as the business is concerned.
Yeah.
So I thought he was older than he was then, you know. So, wow.
So Terry Funk had success pretty much everywhere he wrestled. How many wrestlers can you say that had success every place they wrestled? He wrestled for All Japan Pro Wrestling, ECW, both in his Eastern and Extreme versions. He was one of the first guys, obviously. International Wrestling Association of Japan, Frontier Martial Arts Wrestling, USWA, WCW, WWF, National Wrestling Alliance territories like Big Time Wrestling, Championship Wrestling from Florida, Georgia Championship Wrestling, Stampede Wrestling. He was also the promoter of Amarillo-based Western States sports promotion. He's held the ECW World Heavyweight Championship, the NWA World Heavyweight Championship, the USWA Unified World Heavyweight Championship, the WWF World Tag Team Championship, and the ECW World Television Championship. He headlined the pay-per-view November to Remember 3 times in ECW. He's been inducted into multiple Hall of Fames, including WWE, WCW, and NWA, and Hardcore. And I got all of that from Wikipedia. So after World War II, his family moved to Amarillo, which is very much associated with Terry Funk. I mean, Terry Funk's probably, at this point, a god in Amarillo. So who else do you know from Amarillo?
No one, I guess.
No one. According to Brian Solomon, Pro Wrestling Fact, all that's left to know about the world's most entertaining spectacle. Funk started his career, like I said, in 1965, working in his father, Dory Funk's Western States sports promotion, Amarillo, Texas. According to Tom Lavero, in the rise and fall of ECW, his debut match was against Sputnik Monroe on December the 9th. So, Dory Funk Jr. won the NWA title in 1969. Now, if you go back to our very first episode, you will know that the NWA title at this time was the main world championship. It was the most prestigious title. Anything else at this point had pretty much spun off of the NWA title, if it was worth anything.
Right.
So the NWA title was it. The WWF title and all that was not as prestigious as the NWA title until the 80s when Hulk Hogan came around. So, this is from Wikipedia. Him and his brother, Dory Funk Jr., quickly rose up the ranks as a team. And also, Terry Funk wrestled in single matches against the likes of Ernie Ladd and Hank James. They became big money wrestlers by the end of the decade. So, they became famous pretty quickly.
Yep.
But that's because they were great. Now, one thing I want to explain, most modern fans that are familiar with Terry Funk, when you think of Terry Funk, you think of getting hit in the head with trash can lids and getting thrown into dumpsters and thrown off stages and getting tossed in the barbed wire. But at this time, Terry Funk was a professional wrestler in the same vein that Buddy Rogers and Pat O'Connor were professional wrestlers. He was a mat wrestler, a master technician. He was he adopted the Southern style of wrestling, which would later become wrestling.
Right.
So he was a legitimate wrestler in those days. Not to say he wasn't legitimate later in hardcore. He was an innovator of hardcore in a lot of ways. And he didn't have the bruising style at this time. So if you look up matches of Terry Funk at this time, he was doing mat wrestling, old school style professional wrestling, the same kind of professional wrestling that you would see Buddy Rogers, Pat O'Connor, those kind of guys doing. He modeled himself after what was at the time the standard for professional wrestling. All right, so he went to championship wrestling in Florida, which was a territory in those days. And in 1975, Dory Funk Jr. was supposed to fight Jack Briscoe for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship in Miami. Dory didn't appear for the title shot, so Terry showed up. Terry beat him and won the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. He had a 14-month reign, and he defended against people like Jack Briscoe, Dusty Rhodes. Okay, if you're not familiar with wrestling, Dusty Rhodes was one of the biggest stars at this time. It doesn't get much bigger than Dusty Rhodes.
And he had a successful defense against Dusty Rhodes.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, goodness gracious. Carlos Roca, Giant Baba, and Pat O'Connor. Pat O'Connor being a former champion that, in my opinion, from what I understand, was biggest in the 60s.
Right.
So this was in the 70s. So this was towards, like, the latter part of his career. So being a name like Pat O'Connor was a big deal still at this time. So he wrestled in North America, but he also defended the belt in Australia, Japan, and Singapore. So he was a world champion. He went around the world
a true
defending
world
the world title, okay? So he was on top of the world, and wrestling was booked differently back then. And I kind of talked about this in the earliest episodes of this podcast, that not anybody got a chance to fight the world champion. They protected the world champion. You had to really rise up the ranks and earn your shot to even get a chance to fight against the world champion.
Right.
To even lose against the world champion, that was still a huge honor. Yep. So when Terry Funk's holding the title and he's winning and he's defending, he is on top of the wrestling world, okay? Now, the thing is, Terry Funk, after he lost his title against Harley Race, his reign ended in Toronto when he was defeated by Handsome Harley Race. And Harley Race had earlier defeated Dory Jr. and then defeated Terry for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship before losing it to Jack Briscoe. Okay, Terry Funk could have said, all right, I've had a good career.
Yeah.
I was world champion.
Right.
This was I guess it probably would have been 76 when this happened because it's 14 months later. I don't know the exact date, but he could have said that was it.
Yep.
And his career would have still been legendary, being in the world title lineage.
Yep.
That goes back to 1905, George Hackenschmidt.
George Hackenschmidt.
Yeah, he was in the lineage.
His name was in the books. He was a world champion.
And that could have been it.
Yeah.
He could have retired for the first and only time. And that would have been it. That would have been it.
Please tell me you know exactly how many times he retired and
No,
unretired.
I don't know. We got to look it up. I don't know if there's a source on Earth that knows that. I mean, how many times did Terry Funk sit on his sofa and talk to his wife and said, "I'm retired," and came back to wrestling 2 days later? Terry Funk, number of retirements. Gosh, I don't know if there's a source on Earth. How many retirement matches has Terry Funk been in? Okay,
I can't find an answer here.
I see Terry Funk in pro wrestling's 5 shortest retirements, so he's on that list. I can't find an answer here either. I know his last match was in 2017, and that was probably by accident. So, I don't know. He just couldn't retire. He could not stop.
I see something here that says he retired for the first time in 83.
For the first time.
For the first time in 83.
So he did retire after losing the world title. And he could have stopped there.
Yeah, right.
He could have stopped there, and it would have been okay.
Yep.
And nobody would have questioned him about it and complained.
I'll also see that he said that he was going to have his last match at Fully Loaded 98.
That didn't happen.
No. But yeah, it was. That's part of his legacy, I guess.
Yeah. He was like a comic book character. He was like Jean Grey from the X-Men, like who just can't die. He just kept coming back.
Yep.
So, all right. So the match between Race and Funk, still going with Wikipedia here. Race lifted Funk up for a shin breaker and then trapped him in an Indian deathlock. Funk failed to respond to the submission. So they apparently, I didn't realize this until I read this, but they did that back then too, I guess, where they would have wrestlers pass out. I guess that protects their it protects the wrestler in a way. Kind of like with Steve Austin when he failed to respond to the sharpshooter and was bleeding all over the place.
Yeah.
It protected Austin. Even though he lost the match, it made him.
Right.
So, all right. So 1981. We're jumping a little bit forward here. I'm hitting the highlights. Terry went to Continental Wrestling Association and feuded with Jerry Lawler. I got this from Wikipedia. When I say get this from Wikipedia, I mostly just refresh my memory on a lot of this stuff, like getting the exact dates and stuff like that. All this stuff is familiar to me. So Terry Funk had a match where there was a empty arena. Now, I don't know if this was the first empty arena match. That's one thing they'd be interested to look up.
And I've only seen one empty arena match.
Yeah, this is the first empty arena match that I'm aware of.
Okay.
But there obviously could be more.
Right.
They could have gotten the idea from somewhere else. So the match was in an empty Mid-South Coliseum, which was like the ECW arena for the Memphis territory. In Memphis, Tennessee. The match took place in the empty arena, like I said, with only Lance Russell, cameraman, and the photographer present. So the confrontation only lasted for a few minutes and ended with Funk trying to put Lawler's eye out with a broken 2x4. Okay.
That sounds right. That sounds accurate.
So we're seeing shades of the later Terry Funk now.
Right.
So, Matt Wrestler in the lineage of like Buddy Rogers and Pat O'Connor, and now he's trying to put out someone's eye with a broken 2x4. Okay. So Lawler kicked Funk's elbow, causing him to hit himself in the eye. The tape aired on April 25th of 1981. All right. So Funk went to All Japan Pro Wrestling between 1972 and 1991. Had several different stints over there. And this is where he really adopted the hardcore style
in Japan.
Yes.
If you've read Mick Foley's first book, he goes in depth a lot about these matches with Terry Funk.
These are not with Mick Foley. That's later.
Oh yeah, it's later. But if you read his book, you'll get the gist of what happened in those matches.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a different style. Okay.
Yeah.
So he became a top star in Japan with his brawling ability, over the top behavior, colorful get-ups, and the Funks were heels until they faced the Sheik and Abdullah the Butcher. Okay.
It's like, you say those names and you know where this is going.
Yeah. So I have to explain who are the Sheik and Abdullah the Butcher. Okay. So now there's an Iron Sheik and there's a Sheik, and both of them are crazy as hell.
Yes.
Okay. The original Sheik was he was a heel, and he was very violent. Okay, and he inspired a lot of violent wrestlers down the road, including Sabu.
Yeah.
Abdullah the Butcher, just like his name implies, was a violent wrestler. That's the only thing he could do. He didn't know anything. I don't know if I've ever seen Abdullah the Butcher do a drop toe hold or a headlock takedown. I mean, that's the only thing that Abdullah the Butcher did was violence, blood.
Right.
And he bled in every single match.
Yeah.
He would make John Moxley look like an old school classic mat wrestler. Okay.
Didn't he have like really deep scars in his forehead?
Yes.
I think it. I want to say it was also in Mick Foley's book that he was playing poker with him one time, and he would hold his poker chips and the scars on his head.
Yeah.
If I'm remembering, like that just came back to me. I think that was Abdullah he was talking about.
Yeah. Well, that's believable to me.
Yeah.
And a wrestler that I've heard comment on the scarring issue is John Moxley. And according to John Moxley, the scars themselves are also easily busted open. So, according to John Moxley, he sometimes would even have to blade himself because the scars would just bust open on their own. Okay? So, if John Moxley, with his scar tissue level, is saying that, what was it like for Abdullah the Butcher, who had even worse scarring on his head? Okay. So the Funks were heels until they faced these guys. These were the worst of the worst heels. To put it in perspective, when your favorite babyface went up against the Sheik or Abdullah the Butcher, you were scared for your favorite babyface. You were scared for their safety because you knew what these guys would do.
Right.
And so anybody could be a face against these two guys, okay?
Right.
The two later faced Stan Hansen, Bruiser Brody, and Giant Baba in memorable feuds as well. Stan Hansen, a brawler. Bruiser Brody, a brawler. Did I say Brody or Brody?
I think you said Brody.
Okay, let me make sure. Bruiser Brody. These two were very big brawlers at that time. And that's where Terry Funk got the style. Okay, here's another thing. I got this from watching a Terry Funk documentary and also Wikipedia. This is something I did not know about Terry Funk.
Okay.
Or I probably did know growing up and I forgot about.
Okay.
That's probably more likely the case. Okay, because I've seen WrestleMania 2 and he was at WrestleMania 2.
Okay.
Terry Funk wrestled in the WWF from 1985 to 1986. He teamed with his brother Dory, who was known as Haas at the time, against the Junkyard Dog and Tito Santana at WrestleMania 2. He had a series of house show matches against Hulk Hogan, which that's a big deal.
Yeah.
You know?
I didn't know he was in the company then.
Yeah, I can't remember. Although I have seen WrestleMania 2, so obviously I would have seen Terry Funk.
Right.
But it escaped me.
And he went by Haas? Or his brother went by Haas?
That's his brother, Dory.
Okay.
Dory Funk Jr.
But he went by Terry Funk.
He went by Terry Funk.
Okay.
This is also when he started bringing the Brandon iron. Now, he wasn't like lighting on fire and sticking people with that.
Yeah.
He was just bringing the Brandon iron with him.
Right. I'm kind of surprised he didn't do that.
I mean, I'm sure he probably used it as a weapon or something like that. But
Right.
not while it was on fire.
Right.
That's still something I don't know. How do they do that spot with the fire and the Brandon iron?
I don't know.
I mean, did they actually burn the guy? I mean, what? I mean, when I was young, I thought that this was what he was literally burning the guys and branding them. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, it looked. I couldn't. It looked like that's what he was doing.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know what was going on. Okay, I want to talk about something that's interesting about being a wrestling fan at the age of 39 and having watched it my whole entire life. And this is one of those incidents. Okay.
Okay.
I don't know what it's called, but like, you know, when like people have like mass collective memories that are like wrong or whatever, like they remember like Sinbad or somebody, or Shaquille O'Neal being the genie in the movie or whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Well, there's moments in wrestling that are like that for me personally. Okay. So I watched stuff as a kid, and then I guess over time, you know, it had such a shock value to me as a kid where I was just horrified, or I was just, you know, amazed by something emotionally, that when I remembered it later as an adult, I remembered it being 10 times worse than what it actually was.
Right, yeah.
And we're going to talk about that with Terry Funk in a minute. But I want to give an example of this. Okay, so when I was young, I watched Sergeant Slaughter's feud with Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
And I vividly remembered, I mean, I would have sworn it on a court testimony under oath that I saw Sergeant Slaughter burn the American flag on television.
Okay.
Well, when I actually looked up what actually happened back in 1991, he was burning one of Hulk Hogan's tank tops.
Oh, okay. But it was like the American flag.
It was like the American flag. And that's what I remember. Was that it was the American flag. Because at the time, to me, a Hulk Hogan, you know, tank top was like the American flag to me. So as a kid, that was such sacrilege to see the Sergeant Slaughter burning the tank top of Hulk Hogan.
Right.
So I looked up this incident, this feud with Ric Flair, okay? So Terry Funk had a feud with Ric Flair in WCW in 1989.
Okay.
And there was, prior to their matches, there was a pile driver onto a table. Okay. And just out of curiosity, I wanted to rewatch this pile driver before coming up with all this material. Okay. Now, I want to tell you what I remember. Okay. And I want to tell you what actually happened. Okay. Okay. So, what I remember happening was Terry Funk putting Ric Flair on a table, picking him up for a pile driver, like jumping up through the air and crashing through the table, and Ric Flair's head just basically exploding with blood everywhere.
Right. Yeah.
So, let me tell you what actually happened.
Okay.
Terry Funk lifted up Ric Flair with Ric Flair standing on his hands to protect himself. Okay. And did the pile driver onto the table, which did not break. Which, you know, actually, in a way, kind of makes it worse than what I saw, but that's not what I remembered. Okay. And the table didn't break. They both fall off the table and to the ground. And I looked at that, and I said, man, that's nowhere near as spectacular as I remember it. Right. But I think what it was is back then, a table spot was... I mean, it wasn't like today where they bring out the furniture every other match and do tupe suicidas every other match. Right. Back then, a table spot was unusual. So when I saw Terry Funk pile drive Ric Flair onto the table, it hit me emotionally that, oh my God, he's killing Ric Flair. Ric Flair's dead. Right. Okay. So the memory sticks in my brain and I guess melds with a lot of other pile drivers through tables. And I remember the pile driver as, like, you know, Terry Funk just killing Ric Flair. Okay. And that's not like what happened. When I look back on it, it was nowhere near as violent as I remember it. But at the time, that was ultra violent. Yeah. Especially for WCW or any American wrestling at the time. Yeah. It was unparalleled at that time. The only other thing I can compare it to is I remember seeing the Road Warriors, one of the Road Warriors, I believe it was Hulk, pile drive Kurt Hennig onto a table. That was pretty violent. But once again, that's how I remember it. I remember Kurt Hennig being busted open really bad. Yeah. And that was an AWA spot. So, they didn't bring out the furniture every single match back then. So whenever you actually did see a table get used, it was a big freaking deal. Right. Had the pile driver spot. Also, Terry Funk tried to suffocate Ric Flair with a plastic bag. That was pretty horrifying at the time.
Right.
And there was a 5-star, Dave Meltzer, 5-star I Quit match between Ric Flair and Terry Funk.
Okay, how did this go?
It was really freaking good.
Yeah.
That's the only way I could describe it.
Yeah.
Ric Flair won the match. It was a really good match, and it was a good culmination to a good feud where, like, there's all this other stuff that was happening, and it was just a great match, and it's one of the times that Dave Meltzer got it spot on.
Right.
So, to my knowledge, that's Terry Funk's only 5-star match was against Ric Flair. So, yeah. Okay. Some people may wonder, based off of some of the other things I've said in other episodes, why am I supporting Terry Funk doing this hardcore stuff?
Yeah.
Okay. The thing is about Terry Funk is he didn't drop the wrestling psychology at the entranceway when he went into these matches.
Right.
He kept the wrestling psychology. He knew what he was doing. There's a huge difference between a wrestler that knows what he's doing that's going out there and being violent versus a wrestler who doesn't have any other skills except for being violent.
Right.
You still have to be entertaining. You still have to be a character. You still have to make a connection with the fans or get heat or something.
Right.
Something has to happen here, okay? And Mick Foley said it best. It might have been in his book. I think it was in his book. He talked about how a lot of wrestlers would try to have crazy gimmicks. Oh, I'm crazy. I'm unpredictable. I talk to myself. I'm nuts. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to put you in a hip toss. You know, and they would be just these bland wrestlers that would go out there and just do the same old stuff that everybody else would do, except for they would go out there and talk to themselves or you know, have like multiple personalities or whatever. And it just wasn't believable.
Right.
Okay. Now, Mick Foley, people actually believed that he was crazy. People actually believed that he was a masochist. Because what else could he be?
Right.
So the same thing happened to Terry Funk. When he would go out there and act like a wild Texas madman, everybody believed it.
Right.
Nobody questioned it. Everybody thought that Terry Funk literally was that wild and that crazy and that violent. And that's another thing, too. His hardcore stuff didn't look fake.
Right.
It wasn't a bunch of people just standing around getting ready to get hit with objects and just waiting to have spots done through furniture and stuff like that.
Right.
Everything was fresh and new back then, and everything looked real, okay?
Probably made more sense.
Yeah.
It just wasn't random furniture.
It wasn't random furniture.
Random blood. And
Yeah. That's where the ring psychology comes in.
Right.
When Terry Funk got on the microphone, you believe that man was nuts. Gosh, he probably was. But then again, like if you watch Beyond the Mat, for example, and I rewatched that to prepare for this, you see him being a family man and like just being this normal family guy. How does that even work? Okay. And we haven't even got into like the really hardcore stuff yet.
Right.
I mean, we're talking about a pile driver through a table. That's all we're talking about right now. And we have not even gotten into the really wild, crazy stuff yet. As my friend who's the fan of Vince Russo pointed out, I have a videotape at home of in WCW 1994 where Funk wrestled Terry Blanchard to a double disqualification at Sunbury, and became a member of Colonel Robert Parker's stud stable. And along with a bunkhouse Buck, Arn Anderson, and Ming, the stable would focus their energies on Dusty and Dustin Rhodes, as well as the Nasty Boys in a War Games match. So Terry Funk was in a War Games match. All right. We're about to get to the ultraviolent stuff.
Okay, let's go.
So, International Wrestling Association of Japan, 1994 to 1995, coming from Wikipedia. King of Death tournament, or King of Death match tournament, held on August the 20th, 1995 in Kawasaki. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So, Terry Funk and Cactus Jack,
yes,
who was Terry Funk's protege, wrestled in let me get this right. And Cactus Jack is better known as Mick Foley, if you don't know who that is. They wrestled in a no ropes, barbed wire, exploding barbed wire boards, and exploding ring time bomb death match.
Yes, correct. I'm pretty sure they got third-degree burns after this.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure there's a picture of Mick Foley in his book. Like you can see his arm is just like burned to shit.
Yeah, and that goes back into like the branding iron. Like,
yeah,
like how did they fake that?
Right.
I don't know. Like, was it faked? I mean, come on. It was ridiculous. Okay. So the name of the match is exactly what it sounds like.
Right.
No ropes. All right. So there's barbed wire instead of ropes.
Right.
Okay. Exploding barbed wire boards. So these are boards
with barbed
wire
that explode.
When you get slammed on them.
Yeah.
And exploding ring time bomb death match. So basically, if the match doesn't end by a certain time, the ring explodes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
This is what the match was, and this wasn't AEW exploding time bomb death match where like the time goes off and like little sprinklers go, and it just hit the noise or something.
I don't know. I got a noise. Wait, I got a noise. No, that's not it. No, that's not it.
That's good enough. That was the AEW match.
Okay. Oh, man.
So this match was not like that, okay?
Yeah.
So, of course, this happened in Japan, and, I was a wrestling fan at this time, and obviously I didn't watch this match as it aired in Japan, but tapes came over about this match. And wrestling magazines, this is where I learned about the match. Wrestling magazines wrote about this match. And I had known of both of these wrestlers. And I'm like, good God, what are they doing over there in Japan?
Yeah.
I mean, and of course, I wasn't smarting up at this time, and so I thought that these two guys were trying to kill each other. Terry Funk and Mick Foley were in an interview, and they talked about how that it was ironic that in professional wrestling, the more that you try to hurt each other, the more money you make, and the more money you make, the better friends you get. So Terry Funk and Mick Foley tried to kill each other.
Yep.
And they made a lot of money doing this, and they became great friends in the process. All right, so now we're going to talk about, a lot of this stuff blends into each other right now. Eastern Championship Wrestling, Extreme Championship Wrestling. Terry Funk became, famous, notorious for what he did in Japan. And Terry Funk promised to help the new talent in ECW. He had many feuds, got a lot of wrestlers over, like Cactus Jack, Shane Douglas, Sandman, Sabu, his protege, Tommy Dreamer. So in like kind of a reward for this, for getting the younger talent over and helping establish ECW, he headlined their first pay-per-view, Barely Legal, on April 13th, 1997, and he won the ECW World Heavyweight Championship from Raven. All right. This match. All right. This match. Oh, my God. I remember watching this match as a teenager, and I was just, at this point, I'd been smarting up, okay? So He was defeated by Sabu in a barbed wire match at Born to Be Wild in August of 1997, in which the ropes of the ring were taken down and replaced with barbed wire. Okay, now sometimes in wrestling, barbed wire is gimmicked. They cut off the sharp edges.
Right.
You know, that's. I don't know what happened here, but let me tell you what happened.
You don't know what happened, but you got to tell us what happened.
Yeah. I don't know if all the ropes weren't gimmicked in this match, or maybe there was a section of barbed wire that they forgot to gimmick or something.
Okay.
But during the match, Sabu cuts his bicep.
Yes. Yeah.
He cuts his bicep.
Yeah.
With the barbed wire. Okay. And when I say he cuts his bicep, I'm not saying he got a cut on his bicep.
Yeah.
He cut his bicep.
Yeah.
His bicep was ripped.
Yeah.
The muscle was ripped. There was blood just spewing out of his bicep.
Yeah.
Okay. So Sabu needs like emergency medical attention at this point. But the match isn't over yet.
Yeah.
Okay. And so they don't stop the match.
Isn't this where he taped the bicep back to his
Yes.
arm and finished the match?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. There's a part of the match I remember vividly where, first, like, Terry Funk keeps on beating up on Sabu. Okay. And he goes to put Sabu through a neck breaker through a chair. Okay. And while Terry is holding Sabu in the neck breaker position, he's actively taping his bicep.
Yeah.
So he's like no selling all this stuff that Terry's doing to him, and like being a doctor to himself in the ring.
Yeah.
And he's taping his bicep that's been ripped.
Yeah.
Like while just frantically trying to do it while Terry is still just beating up on him. And I mean, it was just nuts.
Yep.
It was just nuts. If you watch the match, it was the most violent, insane thing ever. And speaking of being hardcore and having ring psychology, you know, Sabu, he could do high flying stuff. He was he's capable. He could do a lot more than hardcore. And he was another wrestler that the fans really believed. Even though I'd been smarting up to the business, I really believed that he was this madman from India that couldn't speak English.
Right.
Not some guy from Michigan.
Right.
Because the stuff that he did in the ring was just so maddening.
Yeah.
That I just believed it all. So that's Sabu. Okay. September 1997, a show was held in Funk's hometown of Amarillo. It was called the Terry Funk WrestleFest, and was both his own show and a celebration of the careers of Terry, his father, and his brother. Bret Hart was allowed by the WWE to wrestle in this event against Terry. Mick Foley was also allowed to wrestle this event as well. It's in Beyond the Mat if you watch the documentary.
Yep.
And Terry Funk lost the match and retired. Okay.
Yeah.
So, discussion of Beyond the Mat.
Yeah.
You first see Terry getting out of bed. It looks like he could hardly move.
Yeah.
This was taped in 1997.
Yep.
He would wrestle for another 20 years.
Yeah.
Okay. So this guy barely can move to get out of his bed, but he gets in the ring and does moonsaults.
Yeah.
Okay. Moonsaults. Okay. At his advanced age, he would still do moonsaults in hardcore wrestling, okay?
Yep.
He's in his 50s at this point.
Yeah.
So, Terry Funk goes to the knee surgeon, doctor, or whatever, and, you know, the surgeon was basically like, okay, this knee's like fucked, but you can still, you know, use it for a while with pain.
Yeah.
But this knee's completely gone. And you need surgery. And he's like, well, if I don't get the surgery, can I still get around like pretty good, comfortably? And the surgeon was like, you shouldn't be getting around at all right now.
Right.
So what does he do after that?
He goes and wrestles.
He goes and wrestles another match for ECW.
Yeah.
He got the surgery later, but
Yeah.
I mean, after getting this consultation where he's told his knee's completely gone,
Yeah.
and he needs a full replacement, he goes and wrestles another match, ignoring the doctor's advice.
Yep.
Okay, Beyond the Mat's really good documentary. I rewatched it. I wondered if I would still like it as much this many years later.
Right.
It was still just as good as the first day I saw it.
Yeah.
Definitely recommend watching it if you haven't seen it. It's just great. He returned to the World Wrestling Federation, but before he did that, he returned to ECW after its retirement after 11 days.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And he wrestled in the World Wrestling Federation from 97 to 98. He feuded with the New Age Outlaws. He was there was one event where him and Mick Foley was put into a dumpster and they were thrown off stage.
Yeah.
And
I've seen that clip. Yeah.
And this legitimately injured Terry Funk. At the time, he was doing a Chainsaw Charlie gimmick.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
But everybody knew it was Terry Funk.
Yeah.
They wrestled in a dumpster match at WrestleMania 14. So Terry Funk returned to WrestleMania and won that match, and they lost the match in a steel cage match. So that was a good feud. He went back to ECW before signing with WCW from 2000 to 2001. He's a 3-time WCW Hardcore Champion, which is a record.
Okay.
And he won the U.S. title 25 years after winning it for the first time.
Wow. Wow.
Now, I understand that WCW was a complete mess at that time.
At that point, yeah.
But that was still an accomplishment.
Yeah.
And Terry Funk wrestled for TNA. He had a brief return to the WWE. He was in the 2009 Hall of Fame with his brother, and he wrestled in various indie promotions. And this came from Mike Johnson, and Terry Funk returns to the ring, and chaos ensues. Pro Wrestling Insider. His last match, he teamed with the Rock and Roll Express in a 6-man tag match where they defeated Doug Gilbert, Jerry Lawler, and Lawler's son, Brian Christopher, via disqualification. And that was Terry Funk's last match. So, Lance, you got to see some of Terry Funk's career.
A little bit.
Yeah. What did you think of Terry Funk?
So, of course, when I started watching, I wasn't aware of his career up to that point, right?
Right.
So I just saw him as another hardcore guy.
Right.
So to me, he was an ECW guy.
Yeah.
That even though I first saw him in clips in the WWF, I knew he had been in ECW. It had been mentioned and stuff. So I saw him in the same likes as Sabu and all those other guys in ECW. So I thought that's what he was all about. I didn't know all this stuff you just talked about, obviously. Now, I learned about all this as the years went on. But, yeah, when I first started in the late 90s, started watching in the late 90s, I only had about 10% of the picture of Terry Funk, right? So
yeah. So, you know, my first impression of Terry Funk was prior to knowing about his ECW run. And, you know, I just thought he was just another rough Texan type gimmick.
Yeah.
That was, you know, brawling type.
Right.
And I didn't know about him being a former world champion. That just never came up in commentary that I can recall. They didn't really push him as like a world title contender. And, you know, I would say that he had a second career that began when he went to ECW.
Yeah.
That his first career was, I mean, it's hard to say. It's hard to say when it begins and ends. But he had his technical wrestling career, and then over time it developed a brawling style.
Yeah.
That developed into a hardcore style.
He was able to reinvent himself.
He was able to reinvent himself.
Yeah.
With the times, because I mean, let's just be realistic, okay? What promotion wanted a guy that was, in his 40s and 50s that just did technical mat wrestling.
Right.
He would have been a jobber.
Especially in the late 90s when everything was going hardcore anyway.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he kind of brought hardcore to America.
Yeah.
So, because, I mean, he learned it from Japan.
Right.
Just like how Big Van Vader learned how to, do stuff like moonsaults and stuff like that from wrestling in Japan. He brought it over. Terry Funk brought over that hardcore wrestling style that he learned from Japan. And he was the protege for guys like Tommy Dreamer and Mick Foley. And look at all the things that they've done. And Terry Funk was their protege.
Yeah.
So he was an innovator of the hardcore style.
And I like what you said about him getting all those guys over in ECW, because in that match you were just talking about with him and Sabu, I remember Sabu from that match.
Yes.
Because of him taping up his bicep.
Oh, there's something
to
else
me,
I
that was
forgot
the
to
most
say.
memorable thing in that match. So, yeah, I remember that because of Terry Funk.
Yeah, there's something else I forgot to say, too. After the match, they were both wrapped up in so much barbed wire that they had to be cut out of the barbed wire.
Yeah.
I forgot to mention that. Like, I mean, it's kind of harder to discuss every single violent thing that Terry Funk's ever done. I mean, it would be an endless podcast that would take days.
Yeah.
To discuss all the violence that Terry Funk initiated upon others. But, he did get those guys over. So, I mean, it's almost like he had 3 careers. He had his technical wrestling career. He had his brawling career, Texas brawling, roughneck style.
Yep.
And then he had the hardcore. And that lasted for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
All the way up to 2017.
Yeah.
So he dies in 2023 of old age, basically.
Yeah.
I don't even know what it was he died from, but I mean, I know he's just nobody questioned it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It wasn't like I said, he lived longer than he had any right to live, and he was still wrestling in 2017. So
yep. I don't know if you've seen the clip, but I actually just saw this pop up today on YouTube. It was I don't know how long ago it was, but it had to have been in the last couple of years maybe. And it was a video of him at home, and he was begging the fans to stop sending him pictures for him to sign because he was losing his mind.
Wow.
Yeah,
wow.
It was kind of sad. It was kind of disturbing. Like you could tell he was kind of in distress. He was just going downhill.
Wow.
He said he was becoming lame brain. He was becoming goofy. And he was like pleading with people to stop sending him stuff to sign.
Well, yeah, I understand he had dementia.
Yeah, probably
towards the end of his life.
Yeah,
from what I heard, from what I understood, he was actually in like a what do you call it, assisted living home for a while.
Okay,
but then he got out, and then Ric Flair said that he was doing better. But with dementia and things like that, you can have periods of lucidity and then lose it again.
Right.
So it's hard to say what happened. His wife died before him. She preceded him in death. I wonder if he was just like a lot of guys that, when their wife dies, they just kind of slowly decline of a broken heart. And that's what happened to him, because he was one of the few wrestlers. Here's another thing about Terry Funk. He was one of the few wrestlers that stayed married to the same woman. When does that happen?
That doesn't happen, especially with his career. She must have been special to put up with all that. Because you remember in Beyond the Mat, after Mick Foley's match with The Rock at the Royal Rumble, he goes backstage and his wife is like, I don't know how much longer I can put up with this, Mick. So, yeah, that's rough. I mean, man.
I mean, they had to put up with him constantly retiring. I mean, she probably just gave up at some point. Like, just, okay, Terry, you're going to retire Saturday. I understand, like whatever. I know you're going to come back to wrestling on Wednesday.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just, I don't know. We don't know much about his wife, but his family was featured in Beyond the Mat, and he had a normal family.
Yeah. Yeah.
He had a normal family. How does a guy that wrestles an exploding, what is it called again?
Exploding tape, exploding board, time bomb, barbed wire.
death, destruction, and mayhem, exploding heads, decapitation, death ray.
Death ray death match.
Yeah. I mean, how does someone that do that have a normal family? Like, they weren't all messed up. They weren't like, something wrong with them or having some kind of problem or something. I mean, they were just normal people. I just don't get it. Lance, did you have anything else you wanted to comment on Terry Funk?
He was an innovator. He was a legend. He was a lot of things are happening now because of him,
Yeah.
So I don't think anybody's going to forget him. That's a real fan, that's for sure.
Yeah. Anybody that's a real fan is not going to forget Terry Funk.
Yep.
Actually, it's kind of interesting. He was in a meme. A lot of people don't realize this, but in the Crying Wrestling Fan, it's still real to me, damn it.
Yeah.
Terry Funk was one of the guys in that panel discussion.
Okay.
And he said something like, take it easy, man. But he wasn't meaning it to mock him.
Right.
He was like consoling him,
Yeah.
for taking wrestling so seriously.
Yeah.
And I kind of get irritated. I mean, granted, the it's still real to me, damn it, is funny. But I get irritated when people mock that guy. Mm-hmm. Like, how many people can say that they like something so much that they can get that emotional about it?
Right.
Like, that guy doesn't have the problem you do.
Right.
I mean, so
it's like that guy they captured that was crying when CM Punk returned.
Yeah.
In AEW, and a lot of people wanted to make fun of him, and CM Punk defended that guy.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it means a lot, and speaking of this, Friday they had and I'm gonna look forward to telling you about it, but they had a tribute show for Terry Funk and Bray Wyatt, and I can talk about Terry Funk with a lot less emotion as far as sadness, because he had a full career. I mean, he had 2 careers, 3 careers.
Yeah.
50 years, 6 decades.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he almost, if he would have wrestled one more match, he would have matched Luthez' record for a number of decades.
Wow.
Yeah. But he almost did it. He almost made it to Luthez' record. And he had a full life. He had a full career. I didn't think he was going to live as long as he did, given what he did in the ring and how dangerous it was. So I'm not terribly torn up. I mean, of course, it was sad hearing about him having dementia and all that. I mean, it's a terrible disease. I've seen it firsthand how terrible it is. But I'm maybe he's in a better place now and just not suffering,
right?
But Bray Wyatt, they did the 10-bell salute for Terry and Bray, and they showed the rocking chair, which I know you're not familiar with Bray Wyatt, so I'm gonna have to explain a lot of stuff here.
Well, I know he had one of the best entrances ever when the lights went out and he came out with the lantern and everything.
He had 2 of the best entrances ever.
Okay.
One is Bray Wyatt, one is The Fiend.
Okay.
And I'll explain that too.
Okay.
So he had 2 of the best entrances of all time.
Mm-hmm.
So Bray Wyatt was 36, man. The guy still has a family.
Yeah.
Terry Funk's kids are all grown and, having kids of their own and everything else, which is still sad. It's sad to lose grandpa. I mean, I've lost grandparents, but Bray Wyatt had, a family, and I know he made millions and millions, but now that family's going to have no income on that end,
right?
So WWE did say that they were donating 100% of the proceeds from merchandise of the website to the family, which is probably going to be a lot of money because Bray Wyatt was always one of the highest merchandise sellers. Yeah. And right now, given what happened and them doing that, I imagine the sales are going to increase drastically. I mean, I've even bought Bray Wyatt merchandise. I had a Fiend shirt. It was Fiend and Alexa Bliss. I would have worn it today if I could find it, and I don't know if it still would have fit me, but I've even bought Bray Wyatt merchandise. Okay, and there's sadness, and I'm also pissed off because you got fans that were a few weeks ago talking about how Bray Wyatt sucks and all this other kind of shit, and then now that he's dead, they want to get on the bandwagon. And, it was so sad. You know, they were talking shit about him a few weeks ago, and then you got fans that still talk shit about the guy. And I mean, it all pisses me off, okay? And I mean, it's okay to have an opinion, but sometimes opinions are wrong. Yeah. And I'm about to explain that, okay? So, like I said earlier, there's going to be nothing bad said about Bray Wyatt in this podcast, and it's not because he's dead. It's because I thought everything that he did, that he was allowed to do at least, was great. And that he was he had a lot of bad booking decisions that it just didn't go well for him. He is somebody that, and I can't believe I'm about to say this, but as far as creatively, he would have benefited, I think, from going to AEW. Now, he wasn't going to do that because he was getting paid $4 million a year. Right. But they would have treated him better.
Yeah. Creative freedom.
Yeah. Yep. And you know, I mean, I get it. If I had a $4 million contract, I would be staying put too. Right. I mean, I would have been jobbing to people and whatever you want me to do, $4 million. I'll go out there and, you know, take my pants down and moon the crowd or whatever. Hell, I don't care. I'll kiss somebody's ass for $4 million. I'll kiss somebody's ass for $4 million. You know what I mean? I mean, like literally, on air, on television for $4 million. If you want me to do it, pay me $4 million. I'll be there. Just tell me what time to show up. So I ain't judging him for getting paid $4 million and unfortunately not being utilized correctly as a consequence of that. So let's talk about Bray Wyatt generally. He was best known for being in the WWE from 2010 to 2021, and then again from 2022 to his death until 2023, where he died recently. He was one of the Rotundas. His dad, Mike Rotunda. His grandfather was Blackjack Mulligan. His uncles were Barry and Kendall Windham. And he was part of that wrestling family. Yep. His brother, Taylor Rotunda, is also a professional wrestler, better known as Bo Dallas. And with his brother, they held the FCW Florida Tag Team Championship, according to Wikipedia, which was then the WWE's developmental territory. He was one of the first ones in NXT when they converted to NXT. Yep. He wrestled there under various ring names between 2008 and 2012. He briefly wrestled on the WWE's main roster from 2010 to 2011 under the ring name Husky Harris, most notably as a member of the Nexus. What a terrible name.
Yeah.
So he returned to the WWE's developmental territory, which was rebranded NXT, and Rotunda was repackaged as Bray Wyatt. Okay. And he was the villainous leader of the Wyatt family, a bayou-dwelling cult. And he returned to the main roster alongside with Wyatt family members Luke Harper, better known as Brody Lee. Yep, and Eric Rowan. And talk about two guys that were also terribly underutilized and terribly underrated. Both of those guys never received the kind of push from the WWE. I think Brody Lee won the Intercontinental Championship at one point, and that's about as far as he got.
Well, speaking of bad booking, Brody Lee did an interview, I think either right before or right after he got into AEW, and he said that Vince never saw him as any more than a hillbilly.
Yeah.
And he just wasn't going to progress past that. So he had damn good reason to make the jump. Do you think Bray Wyatt might have felt the same way? Like maybe they kind of boxed him into this one gimmick or this one type of gimmick, and he just wasn't going to go as far as he should have?
Bray Wyatt's situation was different.
Okay.
And I'll explain that towards the end when I talk about the controversies and the disagreements about Bray Wyatt.
Right.
But the kind of comment on it briefly, he was fine with his gimmicks that he was allowed to create for himself.
Right.
But I feel like, I mean, we won't know for sure unless his family comments on it or something. But because, I mean, he's getting paid $4 million. He's keeping his mouth shut.
Well, yeah.
About what he doesn't like.
I think the WWE does that to a lot of guys in general. They give them hush money.
Yeah.
I think that because how many guys have they brought in that are fantastic performers and they don't do anything with them, but they don't say anything either.
Yeah.
And it's because they're making more there than they ever would anywhere else.
Well, I mean, Vince found out that he could make Bray Wyatt job as much as he wanted to, and it would do absolutely no damage to his merchandise sales or the fan reaction.
Okay.
He would still be over no matter how much you lost, and the merchandise would still go across the shelves.
Okay.
So that's when you talk about getting pigeonholed. That's how he got pigeonholed.
Okay.
He became that guy.
Okay.
He became the guy that I can job out to anybody I wanted to make them look good.
Right.
And that's another thing. People criticize Bray Wyatt for not getting over other talent. Well, he jobbed so much. I mean, what else was he supposed to do?
Right.
What more could he do to get over more other talent aside from lose to them and get them over?
Right.
I mean, was he supposed to fuck? What was he supposed to do?
Yeah.
So, the Bayou dwelling cult leader gimmick, while it did kind of pigeonhole Luke Harper and Eric Rowan, in that, Bray Wyatt benefited from it. The guy could talk on the mic. He like I said, he had the Jake the Snake Roberts level of ring psychology. And I promise you, Lance, that a week ago, if you would have asked me the same thing, I would have said the same thing. That it ain't just because he's dead now that I'm trying to hype him up or anything like that and compare him to Jake Snake Roberts. And you know me well enough, Lance. How many people do I compare to Jake Snake Roberts?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
He had the Jake the Snake Roberts level. He could look into the camera and it would invoke an evolutionary fear response within you from the way he was looking at you in the camera.
Right.
And it was involuntary.
Yeah.
And he had his gimmick was inspired partly by Waylon Mercy, a WWF wrestler that was not very famous that wrestled in the 90s. And he incorporated a lot of horror themes into his gimmick. And like you said, he had the great entrance.
Yeah.
Him and the Wyatt family would come to the ring, and the Luke and Eric would be wearing like animal face masks, looking like horrific.
Yeah,
and he would carry a lantern, and all the lights would be off, and the fans would turn on their like flashlights on their phone and like wave them around. It would look like fireflies in a swamp. Yeah, okay, it was just amazing.
Yeah,
the entrance that he did, how the fans got into it, and everything else. Bray Wyatt became a 3-time world champion in the WWE. This is one of the few times they booked him well. Holding the WWE Championship once and the Universal Championship twice. He held the SmackDown Tag Team Championship with Luke Harper and Randy Orton under the Freebird rule.
What? Okay, what is it?
Oh,
What?
you don't know about the Freebird rule?
I do not know about the Freebird rule.
Oh man, I get to tell you about something.
Is this going to piss me off?
No. This is awesome.
Okay.
This is awesome. This is fucking awesome. Okay. So, the Fabulous Freebirds.
Okay.
You know who those are, Lance, right?
Yeah.
Okay. They were a trio.
Okay.
That dominated wrestling back in the day. The villainous trio, okay?
Yeah.
I mean, they were hated.
Yeah.
I mean, hated, okay? Yeah. They would interchange who would be defending the tag titles between the three of them.
Okay.
In matches.
Okay.
So, even though it was two people winning the belt, any two of the three could be defending the title on any given night. Okay. So the Freebird rule at the time was an exception allowed for the Fabulous Freebirds to do that. Okay. Normally in tag team wrestling, you can't do that, okay? The Freebird rule also means that anybody that's in that trio is the tag team champion. So all three people share the tag titles. Okay. So they all become tag team champions, okay? All right. So the Freebird rule has been used by other tag teams in wrestling history since then. And this was one of the examples of that. Another example is, New Day, the New Day, with Big E and all them. Okay. Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston. They would have the Freebird rule, where any one of them could defend the title in any given night. So, no, I think it's awesome, personally. I mean, because it goes back to the Fabulous Freebirds. Right. It's just a little, just a little history thing that got passed down over time from the Freebirds. Okay. So they established it. That's the Freebird rule. So, actually, when Bray Wyatt lost the SmackDown tag titles, he was not in the match. It was Randy Orton and Luke Harper that lost the belts. Okay. But since it's the Freebird rule, that's another thing about the Freebird rule. Once two of them lose the belt, all of them lose the belt. Okay. So it affects everybody. He also won the Raw Tag Team Championship with Matt Hardy. He had a hiatus from August of 2018 to April 2019. And this is all coming still from Wikipedia. And Wyatt returned with a new gimmick, portrayed as suffering from multiple personality disorder. He randomly switched back and forth between two characters. His good side of Bray Wyatt, a Mr. Rogers-esque children's TV host, and his bad side of The Fiend, a grotesque, horror-themed monster clown.
Okay, now earlier, when we were talking about Terry Funk, you mentioned people would try to put on this gimmick of being crazy and multiple personalities, but was he able to pull this off?
He pulled it off with great ability. Okay. Now he didn't do it from jumping through furniture or barbed wire or anything. Right. Because it's the WWE, they wouldn't allow it. Right. But he once again, the ring psychology and the way he sold everything, it was, like I said, when he'd stare into the camera with like this like intimidating stare, like it just invoked an involuntary response in you that you couldn't help but have a reaction to. Right. Okay. And his promo skills were top notch. I mean, the guy ranks up there with the best of the best on the mic. Me and you've talked about LA Knight. I mean, yeah. Bray Wyatt was up there with LA Knight. Actually, Bray Wyatt's last match was against LA Knight.
Was that Lights Out match? The glow in the dark match.
Pitch black. It was a terrible idea for a match, but at least it was somebody that was awesome that he had his last feud with. Right. The match idea was terrible. It was a Mountain Dew pitch black match. Oh. Yeah, that was once again bad booking. Yeah. Okay, bad booking And it was two guys that suffered from bad booking that were getting thrown in a match together that was terrible.
Right.
Okay. So, I've talked about, I don't know if we did it on the podcast or just personally.
Mm-hmm.
I talked about Doink the Clown with you before, and the original Doink was an evil clown. And I actually liked him. He was played by Matt Bourne. The evil Doink was like way behind his time. Well, the Fiend was like the evil Doink times 100.
Okay.
Okay. He had this horrifying mask on his face.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the only thing you can really tell that was a clown element was the face was like white, but it was horrifying. Just look up a picture of the Fiend.
Mm-hmm.
You'll see. I mean,
I've seen it, and I didn't know anything about the gimmick or what it was about, but it just reminded me of the Joker.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
I don't know if that was the point. I don't know if that's what they were going for, but that's what it. But just at first look, that's what it reminded me of.
Yeah. Well, I can see that because I mean, the Joker is a horrifying clown,
right?
You know, he was released from the WWE in July of 2021. From my understanding, due to health-related issues, but then returned at Extreme Rules in October 2022 with a new character that claimed to be his real-life self, but he brought back that multiple personality. So they got rid of the Fiend at this point. And I'm gonna tell you how, in my opinion, that was a travesty. He had after one televised match at the 2023 Royal Rumble, he went on a medical hiatus in February due to contracting COVID-19 and died of a heart attack in August. So, I don't even know where to start. Let's start with WrestleMania 31.
Okay.
He lost.
What year was that?
God, Lance, I can't do math.
I can't either.
We were 31. So what year were we? Or I was 31 because I was born in 84.
Okay, so 2015.
It would have been 8 years ago. Yes, I guess 2015. Yeah.
Okay.
I might anger some people with what I'm about to say, Lance.
Go for it.
Bray Wyatt should have beat The Undertaker.
Okay.
He should have been the one that beat The Undertaker. Why did they do Brock Lesnar was already over.
Right.
He didn't need it. Mm-hmm. Roman Reigns beating The Undertaker, that was just a tragedy, period.
Yeah.
Okay. Bray Wyatt needed that win.
Mm-hmm.
Out of anybody, if they were going to do it, because, I mean, they threw it away later with having it go to Brock Lesnar. I mean, just throwing away the streak.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to throw away the streak, give it to somebody that really needs it.
Yep.
Bray Wyatt could have been that guy.
Was this before he won the title?
Yes.
Before he was world champion?
Yeah.
Okay.
Randy Orton joined the Wyatt family in late 2016. And 2016 TLC pay-per-view, Orton and Wyatt win the SmackDown tag belts, as I talked about earlier, and they were shared with Luke Harper. Harper and Orton, Brody Lee. Mm-hmm. And Orton would lose the titles under the Freebird rule. And back at this time, he was called Luke Harper, so I may say Luke Harper a lot, but he was Brody Lee. On the February 2017 Elimination Chamber, Wyatt won his first singles championship and his first world championship when he won the WWE Championship, defeating John Cena, AJ Styles, The Miz, Dean Ambrose, who's John Moxley, and Baron Corbin in an Elimination Chamber match. I got mixed feelings about this next part. Okay. Wyatt lost the belt 49 days later. But it was to Randy Orton at WrestleMania 33. And it was after a great angle. Because Orton betrayed Wyatt. And, okay, so I got to back up here. I got to explain some things. All right, so Bray Wyatt had this whole entire mythology, okay, around him. you had the Wyatt family, and he would bring up someone called Sister Abigail.
Okay.
And if you look up online Sister Abigail, you're going to see 100 different explanations of what Sister Abigail was. Nobody ever figured it out. Bray Wyatt, I guess, took it to his grave what Sister Abigail was.
Okay.
It was also the name of his finishing maneuver.
Okay.
Until he changed it to the mandible claw, with Mick Foley was happy about. Not, not you stole my shit.
Right.
So Sister Abigail was, some say that she was a mother-like figure to Bray in the mythology.
Okay.
That taught him the ways of cruelty. Some say that it was his actual sister.
Okay.
Who was undead. Some would say that it was a sister like a nun type sister.
Okay.
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 But nobody ever figured out what it is.
Okay.
So Randy Orton, there was a compound, the Wyatt family compound out in the bayou.
Okay.
Randy Orton burns down the compound where like they did a lot of vignettes and the rocking chair and all this other kind of stuff, and destroyed the grave of Sister Abigail. Okay.
Okay, so she was dead then.
She had a grave.
She had a grave. Okay, we know that.
We don't know much else about
Right.
Sister Abigail.
Okay.
Okay. He lost the title to Orton at WrestleMania 33 after a 49-day reign, which I mean, once again, the way he lost it was great. He could have had a longer reign. He would have a feud with Finn Balor in 2017 and will get resurrected later in his career. So Finn Balor has an alternate persona called the Demon.
Okay.
It's a great entrance. He basically brings up the Demon in times of great need and distress.
Okay, real quick, was Finn Balor the one that wrestled LA Knight last night?
Yes.
Okay, in the main event. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I know
he was in the Bullet Club, Prince David or whatever his name was.
Okay.
All that stuff.
All right.
How do you pronounce his name? I'm probably saying his name all wrong. It shows you how much I know about Japanese professional wrestling. Devitt. So he was. Yeah, that's that he wrestled under that name in Japan, but he became Finn Balor in the WWE. So Prince Devitt, Devitt. Is that how you say it, Devitt?
That's the only way I know how to pronounce.
He's from Ireland, so who the fuck knows? Hey, send me an email. Tell me how I'm wrong. Okay, I got the name wrong. I think it's Devitt.
Okay. We'll just go with that.
Yeah. So that just shows you how I've read about his character and not actually seen his character in Japan, aside from like clips here and there. So he entered a feud, but Finn Balor had a demon character. So at some point in their career, Bray Wyatt's fought Finn Balor. Bray Wyatt's fought the Fiend or the Demon, and Finn Balor has fought Bray Wyatt. Finn Balor has fought the Fiend, but we've never had the Fiend fight the Demon.
Okay.
The Demon's fought Bray Wyatt. So it's all those combinations have happened except for the Fiend and the Demon have never fought. The only way you're going to have that happen is if you download the Fiend on WWE 2K23 and have him fight the downloaded Demon out there.
Right.
Oh God. All right. This is one of the few times where Finn Balor or Bray Wyatt suffered a loss, and I was happy about it.
Okay.
So in November of 2017, Broken Matt Hardy emerges in a feud with Bray Wyatt.
Okay.
It brings out his broken self.
Yep.
Which was basically the WWE version of the Woken Matt Hardy that came from Impact.
Okay.
Okay. Do you know about this?
I know about Broken Matt Hardy, but I don't know about this feud.
All right. Broken Matt Hardy was he had a crazy gimmick.
Yeah.
Okay. And here's the thing about Matt Hardy. He had his own mythology surrounding him. Like his family were characters in the Hardy compound.
Yeah.
And all this other kind of stuff. So I don't know how this happened, but somehow Matt Hardy actually convinced the WWE to have an ultimate deletion match. They probably hated this because I noticed that whenever they released this episode of Raw on Hulu, they left this match out. I had to find the match by other means to watch it because I mostly watch Raw through Hulu.
Right.
Okay. So, I watched the match and I wrote notes. I rewatched the match just because it was just so good. So, Bray Wyatt's got his gimmick where he's wearing the hood and he's got like, that whatever that octopus monster is on the shirt or whatever.
Yeah.
And he's got the lantern and he's at the big Hardy compound gate. And it's this big, huge gate. It has a big, huge H on it. Okay. Mm-hmm. And the gates open and then a drone flies down and a hologram of Matt Hardy. A hologram of Matt Hardy pops up and he's like, I knew you would be here or whatever. Yeah. And he's like, just follow the music. And then so there's like a piano that's playing and I think it's his wife playing. I don't remember for sure. He tells them to follow the music. So there's just this random ring in the darkness, okay? It's got like lights on it. And they start fighting. And Bray Wyatt starts getting the upper hand. Mm-hmm. And Matt Hardy tells the drone to initiate the broomstick protocol. The boomstick.
The boomstick.
The boomstick protocol.
Okay.
And he's like, what is that? Bray Wyatt's like, what is that? And then like fireworks start going off around the ring. And Bray Wyatt's like, what the hell is that? It's just these fireworks start going off around the ring. So they continue fighting and they wind up near this like old, like rundown, like shelter of some kind.
Okay, like a barn or something?
Yeah. And on the screen with the drone computer imagery, it says dilapidated city.
Okay.
and then so they're at this old barn, and Matt Hardy's like, doesn't this remind you of something, Bray? And he starts having flashbacks, and they start showing the Wyatt compound being burned down and everything that happened that Randy Orton did. All right. So they keep fighting, and then they get into, and it pops up on the screen with the computer image, the Dome of Deletion, which is basically this like metal barn. Okay. Has a wrestling ring inside of it. Okay. They keep fighting, and there's a piano there for some reason. And eventually Matt Hardy gets the upper hand. Matt Hardy gets onto the mower of lawns and tries to run over or Bray Wyatt with the mower of lawns while classical music is playing. And then Bray Wyatt does this weird thing that he does where he like stands on his hands backwards and like has his head upside down or whatever. It's this creepy thing that he did.
Okay.
And they stop. They keep fighting. Bray Wyatt gets the upper hand. They're fighting by the Lake of Reincarnation.
Okay.
Brother Nero shows up, which is Jeff Hardy.
Yeah.
As well as Matt Hardy's lawn guy. I can't remember his name. So there's interference. I mean, he's like this Hispanic guy that like works on the yard or something. And like the match ends when Matt Hardy throws Bray Wyatt into the Lake of Reincarnation, and then Bray Wyatt disappears into the Lake of Reincarnation. So
I saw some of this because they have used the Hardy compound in AEW, and I knew about the mower of lawns.
Yeah.
But I cannot remember what match they had in AEW, but because I've seen that, I can sort of picture this in my head. So was the ring like out in like the yard, or was it inside a building?
Well, Matt Hardy has a really big
Yeah.
plot of land.
Yeah.
It was close. There was a ring that was close to some wooded areas, and there was a ring that was inside of the barn too.
Oh, okay. So multiple rings.
Like a multiple.
Okay.
Or it could have been the same ring that got moved.
Right.
Because it was all pre-taped.
Oh yeah.
Cinematic wrestling matches. Okay.
Yeah.
You would see Bray Wyatt would borrow from this later in his career.
Okay.
During COVID, when those kind of matches might be more favorable, and the WWE might be more willing to do that kind of stuff. So, like I said, I think the WWE hated doing this. I'm pretty sure Jim Cornette shit his pants. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It was great.
This sounds fun. I mean,
yeah. I mean, like, and like, I hadn't seen the match in years, and then like I rewatched the match, and I see the drone with like Matt Hardy's head coming in the hologram. And I'm just like, oh my god. Matt Hardy also teamed with Bray Wyatt, and they became known as the leader of worlds. And they won the Raw titles. All right. So, we're about to get to some of my favorite shit.
Okay.
So, when Bray Wyatt was returning, they started running these vignettes called the Firefly Funhouse.
Okay.
Okay. And Bray Wyatt would be like, Mr. What's his name? Mr. Rogers, or like Pee Wee Herman or something.
Okay. In
these vignettes, and they were supposed to be like a kid show.
Yeah.
But it was like real fucked up.
Right.
Okay. In the Firefly Funhouse, you know, it was like like this little room, like in a house with like a TV, and like there was a painting on the wall that he did. That was the Wyatt compound being burned down with Sister Abigail inside of it.
Oh, my God. Wow.
You also had puppets.
Okay.
You had Abby the Witch, which represented Sister Abigail.
Okay.
You had Ramblin' Rabbit, which represented Bray Wyatt's good side, and his conscience, you know, and you had Mercy the Buzzard, which represented being inspired by Waylon Mercy and his original gimmick, and you had Huskus the Pig, which was Bray Wyatt's early career as Husky Harris or whatever. And then you also had a character called the Boss, which looked like Vince McMahon from the 80s. But with like blood dripping out of his mouth and horns coming out of his head. I don't think Vince appreciated it. Especially with some stuff that happened later. So, you can watch every episode of Firefly Funhouse on YouTube.
Okay.
Highly recommend it.
Okay.
It's great shit.
Yeah.
Okay. So, So in the Firefly Funhouse, they have episodes that air like every week or whatever. In the Firefly Funhouse, Bray Wyatt talks about how he used to do very bad things.
Okay.
And how he had changed.
Okay.
He wasn't going to do those bad things anymore.
Gotcha.
And sometimes kids would be on the show or whatever. And like, you know, they had a kid audience that would make noises or whatever. Like we talk about doing bad things. The kids are like, boo. So at one point, he's like, do you want to know a little secret? And he's like talking about how he's going to show everybody his secret.
Okay.
And so he opens the door, and that's when you first see the Fiend.
Okay.
And it's all like staticky, and you can't hardly see anything.
Uh-huh.
And you see this like monster looking dude, because Bray Wyatt's a huge dude.
Uh-huh.
Okay, you see this monster looking dude with
Yeah.
this huge, like like evil clown face, and like a leather jacket, and like the red and black tights, striped tights, and the boots. And you first see the Fiend.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it looks horrifying.
Mm-hmm.
So they keep hinting for weeks.
Mm-hmm.
The Fiend is coming. The Fiend is coming. And Bray Wyatt says, you just need to let him in. And, let me in.
God
So,
damn.
The Fiend eventually debuts, okay? And first of all, it's like this most awesome metal music that's playing.
Okay.
Like, I don't know who did the music, but it's awesome as fuck. You need to listen to it.
Okay.
Okay. So the Fiend comes out, and there's like red lights everywhere. The fans are doing the Firefly shit.
Yeah.
And instead of coming out with a lantern, he comes out with a made up severed head of Bray Wyatt with a lantern shoved in his throat. That was in his mouth is like gaping wide open with this lantern in his mouth with the light coming out of his mouth of the severed head.
Oh my God.
Yes. And he just kind of like paces to the ring all fucked up and just scary looking. If you can't tell, I really like the gimmick.
Yeah.
The Fiend had a 6-month push that was amazing.
Okay.
He defeated Seth Rollins at Crown Jewel in a Falls Count Anywhere match to win a Universal Championship. Since Bray Wyatt or the Fiend was on SmackDown, the title moved to SmackDown. He had a custom belt made. That looked freakish as hell.
Okay.
And on the February the 7th, 2020 episode of SmackDown, Goldberg challenged the Fiend, which he lost. The character lost his first match to Goldberg, ending his reign at 118 days. At the time, I wasn't really furious about that.
Right.
Because he'd been on this huge push. And at the time, I had some nostalgia for Goldberg, and it was nice to see Goldberg back.
Right.
And winning a title. WrestleMania 30 on the second night. Oh. Yes. All right. Oh, God, this match. So, on the second night of the event on April 5th, WrestleMania, it wasn't 30. It was 30-something. I got the number wrong. It's WrestleMania something. Because there's no way that WrestleMania 30 was in the year 2020. So at the time, COVID's running wild, right? So it would have been WrestleMania 36, I believe, I guess. WrestleMania 36, that sounds right. This match is just amazing. So he has a match with John Cena.
Okay.
And it's... Let me just describe what happened in the match. Okay. So Cena comes out, and during most of the matches they had in their Thunderdome or whatever they called it, the crowd music, the crowd noise was piped in.
Yeah.
So they had fake crowd noises.
Right.
They didn't actually have a crowd there. They had pictures of people, on applications like Zoom or whatever in the crowd. It was the best they could do at the time. So Cena comes out, and there's no crowd music. And he's just like reacting to the crowd as if like he's trying to get over with the crowd.
Right.
But he's kind of like awkward about it because there's no crowd there.
Right.
And there's no noise being piped in.
Right.
So he's like, he doesn't know what to do. Okay. This is an actual match. This is a sanctioned match. Okay. So out of nowhere, he appears. Bray Wyatt is in the Firehouse Funhouse.
Okay.
And Cena just teleports there. He's just there. In the Firefly Funhouse.
Okay.
And he's looking around. There's like this ominous music and like the puppets and all that. So, there's a sign on the door that says something like, abandon hope on the door.
Okay.
If you enter,
okay.
abandon all hope.
Okay.
Something like that. So, Cena goes through the door.
Okay.
And when he gets into the door, it's complete darkness, and it's ominous music. Okay. And then he has a flashback to his first match
with Kurt Angle.
Yes.
Okay.
And there's like, and they redo Kurt Angle's calling out to the crowd for an opponent, except for sometimes it's Kurt Angle, the replay, and sometimes it's Bray Wyatt speaking like it as if he is Kurt Angle. And then John Cena comes out. They do a replay of it, but then they actually show John Cena now in his old tights.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. Okay. So Cena gets in the ring with Bray Wyatt, and he keeps trying to hit Bray Wyatt. And he keeps saying, ruthless aggression. And he would swing and he would miss. And then he would say, ruthless aggression. And he would swing and then he would miss. And he just kept on saying, ruthless aggression. And he kept missing. Yes.
So Cena gets teleported to the Firefly Funhouse. Yes. He goes through this door and then he gets teleported back to the ring.
No. When he goes to the door, he's surrounded by darkness.
Okay.
And there's ominous music. And then Bray Wyatt, it changes to Bray Wyatt. He has a flashback to his first match.
Okay.
Bray Wyatt says something to him.
Okay.
And he starts having a flashback.
Okay, so all this is in a flashback.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's all surreal. Okay. Like this is like some kind of distorted reality.
Yeah.
Universe. It's just where like the laws of physics have just been thrown out the door. Okay.
So is Bray Wyatt being depicted as like a wizard or something?
He
pulling this because this sounds like supernatural stuff.
There has been supernatural elements to his character over time.
Right.
Not to the point of the Undertaker.
Yeah.
Where he's like shooting lightning at people. And stuff like that. But yes.
Okay.
But I would say this is more psychological. Like this is like a psychological torment of Bray Wyatt.
Okay.
He has flashbacks to childhood when Bray asked him, did he always want to be a wrestler? Then there's a flashback to Saturday night's main event.
Okay.
And then you see Wyatt and Cena behind a cage, kind of like what they used to do in the 80s during a cage match when they would do an interview. There would be a cage in front of the wrestlers, the blue cage.
Okay, yeah.
The blue cage.
The blue cage.
Yeah. So Bray Wyatt is like doing this like 80s styles promo, and then John Cena comes out and he's just like pumping iron. and they're doing all these like old 80s catchphrases of wrestling, okay? And so Cena's lifting weights like crazy. But then he regains control of his senses.
Okay.
And he tries to like hit Bray Wyatt, but he's lost control of his arms.
Okay.
Okay. Then there's a flashback to his rapper gimmick.
Okay.
So they do a flashback, the actual video, and then John Cena comes through the ring again, you know, in this mystery dark world or whatever, where everything's dark, but there's light on the ring. Okay, so John Cena tries to start talking to him, but he can only speak in rhyme. And he cuts a promo on Bray Wyatt. Okay, in his rapper gimmick.
Okay.
And he does it like he never stopped doing it.
Okay.
I mean, it's great.
Yeah.
This whole thing pokes fun at John Cena, but John Cena just went with it.
Yeah.
Like, one of the lyrics, if I got it right, he said, "You're in the doctor's house trying to get in his face. All you get is these nuts up in your face." And he throws a pack of like nuts at him.
Yeah.
Then there's a flashback to a previous Cena and Wyatt match where Cena got over. And then like it shows like Cena with a chair, and like Bray like in the past was like saying hit me with it or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess Wyatt is saying, here's your chance to do it now.
Okay.
And Cena tries to hit Wyatt with the chair, but he disappears. This is the best part. There's a flashback going back to WCW. 1 minute is Eric Bischoff talking, and the next minute is Bray Wyatt. They kept alternating, and Bray Wyatt's wearing an NWO shirt. John Cena comes out as Hollywood Hogan with an NWO cap and an NWO shirt, dressed like John Cena, but doing the guitar playing on the NWO spray painted title.
Oh my God. Wait, did they bring out the big gold belt with the NWOs?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yes. Yes.
Oh.
It might be the last time the big gold belt has ever been on programming, aside from replays.
Right.
Is in this flashback match with John Cena and Bray Wyatt. They did pan over to I think it's Mercy the Buzzard, or it could be Ramblin' Rabbit. I don't remember.
Mm-hmm.
And the Boss, which was, remember, Vince McMahon puppet
with the horns. Okay.
And he was going off about how good this was, which had to have been.
So he was commentating?
Yes, for a WCW match, talking about how good it was. Like, I know he had to hate that.
Yeah.
Because, here's Vince McMahon watching WCW product.
Right.
And it's good,
I want to stop this podcast and watch this right now.
Should we?
We'll finish up and watch it afterwards.
Okay. All right.
I want to watch the fuck out of this.
It's amazing. It's amazing. The NWO Cena beats up Wyatt while there's "You suck" chants or Cena sucks chants from the crowd. But as he's beating up Wyatt, the camera pans down and turns out to be just Huskus the pig. He's been beating a puppet this whole time. And
what the fuck?
Then the Fiend appears.
Okay.
The murder clown.
Right.
He puts the mandible claw on John Cena and then to the Sister Abigail. This is the actual only wrestling in this whole match.
Okay.
And then Wyatt, then the Fiend pins John Cena, while Bray Wyatt, who's also the Fiend, counts 1, 2, 3.
Nice. I was just about to ask who the ref is.
Bray Wyatt. So that is an official WrestleMania match. On the same WrestleMania match, there was an amazing match between The Undertaker and AJ Styles that was done in cinematic style.
Okay.
The Undertaker every year was trying to have one last good match, and he was failing every year.
Okay.
That match was a good match.
Okay.
The Barnyard, or not the Boneyard match between him and AJ Styles. That was good enough for him to be considered that to be his last match.
Okay.
So on the same night, there was another cinematic match, or the same WrestleMania bit, because it's 2 days.
Right.
On the April 10th episode of SmackDown, after this WrestleMania, Wyatt challenged new Universal Champion Braun Strowman, who won the title at WrestleMania. Wyatt lost. So, there was a partnership with Alexa Bliss.
Mm-hmm.
This is where it starts to get kind of iffy. At SummerSlam on August the 23rd, The Fiend defeated Strowman to win the Universal Championship for the second time. After the match, they were both attacked by a returning Roman Reigns. At Payback on August the 30th, The Fiend defeated the title against Strowman and Reigns in a triple threat match. So where he lost after Reigns pinned Strowman to win the title. So that's his 2 Universal Championship reigns. He reignited his old feud with Randy Orton, and at TLC on December the 20th, Orton defeated The Fiend in a Firefly Inferno match, setting his body on fire.
Okay.
And it was like, they did it where, this is once again during COVID, so they were able to get away with doing, stuff that wasn't live.
Right.
Because it wasn't in front of a live crowd, actually. There was fans watching the feed,
right,
but it wasn't live. And so you had Randy Orton, setting fire, literally whole body in flames to the Fiend, but it wasn't actually Fiend.
Right.
He wasn't in there. I mean, he did get caught on fire, I think, at one point, part of his jacket or something like that, but he, totally set fire to the dude. So the Fiend returned with a new costume where he was completely charred and burned. I heard a rumor online that he didn't like that costume. So he had attacked Orton with his sister Abigail during an intergender match with Alexa Bliss, allowing Alexa Bliss to win. There was another match between Fiend and Orton for WrestleMania 37. And on the second night of the event, the Fiend returned and regenerated to his pre-burn look. And Alexa Bliss, this was so weird. She appeared during his match, and black liquid started to pour down her face, distracting the Fiend, allowing Orton to win with an RKO. After a brief stare down between the Fiend and Bliss, the lights went out and they both disappeared. And that was the last we saw of the Fiend.
Okay.
They got rid of the character. I'll explain some thoughts on that
Okay.
pretty soon.
All right.
When Bray Wyatt made his last return to the WWE, he came back as Bray Wyatt. And he also introduced another character. This was Uncle Howdy.
Okay.
Uncle Howdy was basically Bo Dallas wearing this, ugly-looking old-faced mask.
Okay.
With, a top hat and, just being this mysterious character.
Okay.
That would sometimes help out Bray Wyatt and sometimes interfere with the matches. Okay. So, at the Royal Rumble this year, Wyatt defeated LA Knight in what would end up being Wyatt's final televised match before his death. And that was it. So, they did the tribute show last night. LA Knight was the main event against Finn Balor. That was probably LA Knight's biggest victory to date. Aside from maybe, I think he defeated Rey Mysterio. Before the match, he did a promo. And he did a promo that was a work, but it was like a shoot at the same time. I guess when you're as good as LA Knight, you can do that kind of stuff.
Well, I remember The Rock kind of did that during the Owen Hart tribute.
Yeah,
Raw.
yeah.
He came out as The Rock, but he was paying tribute to Owen.
Yeah, he talked about how you learn from your biggest enemies, and that Bray Wyatt, prepared him for what was ahead, and things like that. It was a really good promo. I thought it was great. I mean, what better guy than LA Knight to be out there? So let's talk about the controversy about Bray Wyatt.
Okay.
Dave Meltzer criticized his ring skills. Okay. Now, I will agree. Bray Wyatt was no Owen Hart, no Ricky Steamboat.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're not going to see, Ric Flair coming out of Bray Wyatt in any of his matches.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're as over as Bray Wyatt was, when you're as over as The Fiend was, it doesn't really matter.
Mm-hmm.
You can go out there and just fart on your opponent, and they would take a hit and fall and pin them,
right?
And the fans would cheer
mm-hmm.
because you're that over at that point, and they're going to accept it. Okay, he wasn't over with everybody though. He had his detractors, and I'm going to talk about y'all. And I hope y'all feel guilty for saying the things you did.
Yeah.
To one of the greatest guys that ever, walked this earth as far as wrestling's concerned. That was terribly. He's going to be in the Hall of Fame, but he could have done more in his career if he had more time. And well, I don't know. Everybody's allowed to have their opinion. I hope you feel terribly, but I kind of do. I mean. I'm speaking from my feelings right now. Yeah, I hope you feel terrible. I hope you wake up at night screaming. Dave Meltzer criticized his wrestling skills. Jim Cornette thought that his Fiend character was too gimmicky. Okay, Lance, if the Fiend would have been pushed correctly, the Fiend would have been the next Undertaker.
Okay.
And people say, oh, Bray Wyatt thought he was the next Undertaker. It all got to his head. That's why he was so bad. Like, dude, seriously, the guy was the next Undertaker.
Mm-hmm.
What thing closer have we had to the Undertaker than Bray Wyatt or the Fiend?
Yeah.
Nothing. We've had a lot of pretend, a lot of make-believe, but nothing. And the thing is, Bray Wyatt was able to be a new Undertaker without ripping off the Undertaker. His gimmick wasn't nothing about like the Undertaker. He didn't go out there and ride in a hearse and all this other shit. You know, he had his own gimmick that he created completely on his own.
Yep.
Both with Bray Wyatt and The Fiend, okay? There was a terrible 2019 Hell in a Cell match against him and Seth Rollins where he lost the match. The match was stopped by the referee after Rollins kept attacking The Fiend with numerous weapons, and this was a Hell in a Cell match. Why in the hell would you have a Hell in the Cell match where the referee stops the match because it's too violent? If referees stopped the matches because it was too violent, they would have stopped the match as soon as Mick Foley started climbing the cage.
Right. Right.
So
Yeah.
they wouldn't have let him up the cage.
Yeah.
They would have said, that's it.
Yep.
That's it. You're done.
Yep.
You can't climb that cage. I mean, but that's not Bray Wyatt's fault.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the Fiend's fault.
Yep.
It's not. Yeah, that damaged the Fiend. That booking.
Yeah.
He lost so much during his career. He jobbed. And people want to say, oh, that he buried talent and all this other kind of stuff, okay? They even claim to have data to prove it, okay? Listen to this.
Okay.
They say, I haven't seen this data, but they say that there's data to prove that when the Fiend was beating up good guys, that they basically had to rebuild their character afterwards, that their ratings and shit were lower after fighting the Fiend. Okay, here's the thing. If you've got a monster heel that is so so powerful in influencing the merchandise and the ratings that by merely putting your good guys, with the exception of Bryan Danielson, whatever, against this guy, it hurts their career.
Yeah.
What should you do? What would you do in that situation, Lance? You got this monster heel that's awesome, that the fans all love.
Right.
This monster heel that you're pushing as a heel, but the fans are all about this guy. His merchandise, like, the fans are just climbing over the tables just to get his shit. Like, the storekeepers are, like, getting mugged and shit because this guy is selling so much stuff, okay? They can't keep it on the shelves.
Right.
All right? There's people, like, that make the merchandise that are, like, you know, dying off because they're being worked so hard selling his stuff, okay? It's like a human rights tragedy, okay? You got this going on with this guy that you're trying to push as a heel.
Yeah.
The merchandise is falling off the shelves like rapidly, and you're pushing this guy as a heel, and any babyface you put against this guy is getting destroyed because everybody recognizes how much more awesome this guy is to your babyface.
Oh yeah.
What do you do as a booker? I put you on the spot.
Well, I don't change anything.
That is certainly one option.
I mean, why would I change anything?
This is what I would do
Okay.
in that situation.
Okay.
I mean, certainly that is an option because you got merchandise just flying off the shelves. Once again, next Undertaker. What did they do to the Undertaker when he became popular?
He was pushed.
He was pushed as a good guy.
Right.
Yeah, he was pushed as a face.
Okay.
Okay. So the Undertaker originally was debuted as a heel. He was, you know, a monster heel.
Yeah.
Big, tall monster guys, you know, almost 7 foot tall, undead. And somebody got smart in the WWE, I don't know if it was Vince or who, and said, you know, we need to make this guy a face. But he's not going to, like, turn face and start, like, hugging the fans and like, you know, giving candy to children. He's still going to be the Undertaker.
Right.
He's still going to be the Undertaker. That's what you do with the Fiend.
Right.
You instead of feeding this guy baby faces, you switch him. You either make him into a you know, like a dark hero type face, kind of like the Undertaker was, or you make him into a tweener. Either way, you don't feed him faces anymore, unless they're, like, you know, made out of Teflon, like Daniel Bryan, and can fight against them and come out on top. You throw heels against them. Okay, so that's what you do with that. That's common fucking sense. Why did they not do that? Why did they get rid of the Fiend character? That character was tremendously over.
Yeah.
Okay. So, all of you naysayers can take your data analytics and your tweets and criticism, and you can stick it all straight up your ass. Okay? Because Bray Wyatt was one of the best wrestlers to ever live. He was one of my favorite wrestlers. And history is going to show that he was right on everything. Okay? He's going to influence history. And we're going to see it over time because people are going to realize it's like an artist that dies, that his stuff didn't sell, although Bray Wyatt did sell.
Yeah.
But everybody starts realizing how great he was after he's dead.
Right.
That's what's going to happen to Bray Wyatt. He's like an artist that now all we've got is his matches that he's wrestled in his promos.
Right.
And only thing we can do is go on Peacock and watch this stuff and said, man, I wish wrestling was like that again. Okay. I know wrestling is not now like what it used to be, but my God, right now it's not even what it used to be a few months ago.
Right.
Because of losing this guy. And, you know, I saw so much negativity about Bray Wyatt, even about why he got fired. They said, "Oh, it's because he's out of shape," and all this kind of stuff. People just come up with all kinds of stuff. And even now, I get on Facebook and like I see like some of his dedicated fans and like, man, they should put him on the cover of WWE 2K24. And people are like, oh, well, they just because he did doesn't mean that he's, you know, that good or whatever. And I'm like, fuck you. Put him on the cover. I'll buy that shit. Put the Fiend in there. Put every Bray Wyatt incarnation in that game. Do a showcase for the guy. I'll play all of it.
Yeah.
I'm game for all of it. And, you know, I mean, if they think that, oh, well, there's other wrestlers that deserve it, put one in there for them too. I don't care. I'll play all of it. And so I just, it all irritates me when you hear this kind of stuff and people don't recognize how good he was. It just personally irritates me. And maybe that's how I'm dealing with my grief, Lance.
Yeah.
It's coming out in the form of anger right now. And I am angry.
Yeah.
And it's just, I just wish people saw what I saw in the guy. I wish that people that weren't in his dedicated fan base would see what the people who are in his dedicated fan base would see in the guy. And I sound like I've sold you on the guy, Lance.
Yeah.
We're about to watch this match.
I knew he was good. Okay, because I mean, it's not like I didn't, you know, didn't know. Okay, I didn't watch, but he was so good I knew who he was.
Yeah.
I mean that tells you something.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of things I need to watch now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't know if there's anything more I can say about Terry Funk and Bray Wyatt.
Well, that was a pretty good session, I think.
Yeah.
All right, so until next time, are we going to pick up on women's wrestling?
Yeah, we're going to pick up
week?
on women's wrestling.
Okay, so next week we're going to pick up on the second part of women's wrestling. I guess that's 1995 to present day.
Present day.
Okay. All right. Well,
I might need some help on the AEW part, Lance.
No problem. All right. So until next week, go watch some Terry Funk and Bray Wyatt matches.
Please do.
All right.
Have a
later
good
on.
one.
See
Bye.
ya.